Hey everyone, Diavolo here, and today we are back for our fourth excursion into the American wilderness for the next part of Steel Ball Run. Here, we finally start to find out who and where Gyro's Appellee might be from, along with a possible reason for him even joining the race to begin with. So far, he's just appeared as more of this brutish character that can take any challenge head on, but throughout this short arc, all of that is challenged, and both of the guys are forced into a situation that begins to bring out a new side of them. Subscribe if you guys are new around here and push this video to 5k likes, but either way, sit back and relax as we delve into the Desert-Born Outlaws arc from Hirohiko Araki's Steel Ball Run. Back inside of the second stage, it's almost sunset time, 6:30 PM. Johnny and Gyro have travelled a distance of about 95 kilometers on the first day across the desert and are now left with only 50 kilometers or so until the nearest watering hole. Their current rank is first while camping at the said location. As the duo is stationed up around their fire, Gyro, I'm assuming, tells Johnny about a 9-year-old boy named Marco. His family belonged to a line of servants to the aristocrats. Marco was also supposed to serve under a baron called Rippy and had to clean their hats and shoes. When the 9-year-old Marco's time of separation from his parents came, he was given a hopeful message by his father. His father said that this job will bring him happiness as long as he stays humble and hardworking. Because of this, every dawn, Marco would wake up and brush the hats and the boots of the baron and his guests. However, the baron was plotting a sinister plan to overthrow and assassinate the king. Luckily, the king's assassination was prevented, but treason is an extremely serious crime for people who fawn over absolute power. All of the baron's partners in the plot, along with their families as well, were all put on trial and sentenced to execution for this act. From the evidence found, the assassination plot was planned in the baron's estate, and because Marco was seen as a part of their family, even though he was just a servant who shined shoes, they assumed that there was no doubt that he knew. The method of execution was beheading, and the state's decision is absolute. Anyways, while I'm guessing Big Gyro was telling Marco's story, or I completely misinterpreted that and Johnny had read about the story beforehand and this was just like a recap of it, Johnny managed to spin the cork of the champagne bottle that he carried with him all of this time. Watching it catch speed inside of his hand, he then watches as it travels up his arm before shooting off. Johnny wanted Gyro to watch him, so in astonishment he screams out asking if he was. Gyro though had a lot going on inside of his head and just snapped back asking why does he have to watch all day? Not caring and more concerned on the spin himself, Johnny realizes that the cork disappeared and tries to find it. He searches under the gear placed up against the rocks and panics when he can't find the cork at all. Getting smacked in the head though, he looks up to see the horse's ass and feels what he thinks is damp poo rolling down his back, when in all reality it's the cork that I'm assuming was shot up the horse's ass. But the bottle's cork can't be that important when you're camping in the middle of the desert with a lit fire at night time. Thus, Gyro senses a racer coming towards them and he asks Johnny to take out any weapons that he's kept hidden. Johnny tries to find the gun that he's kept on him since the beginning of the race, but he's unable to find it. Glancing over, he notices Gyro's spilled open bag and the weird case with a coat of arms inscribed on it. Seeing an article for a boy with a death sentence, he looks closer at the letter with the coat of arms on it. Curiously, he wonders if Gyro stole it, as to have a coat of arms without permission from a lord is illegal for someone inside of Europe. Looking closer under the headline text and seeing a title about 50 million needed for a retrial, Johnny comes to a huge realization. Appearing right behind him though, Gyro scolds Johnny for going through his stuff. Then, standing there with an aura not seen yet from him, Gyro just leans down, grabs his bag and leaves without saying a word. Johnny tries to explain that it wasn't on purpose. Still, he questions who Gyro is, as he knows he's not from this country to begin with. Again, Gyro just tells him to stick to his own damn bag. Confused, Johnny just wondered why he didn't say anything more on the subject. He wanted to know why. Why could Gyro use these steel balls? What are his roots? Is he trying to save that child all alone? Are they related? The race? All that I, Diavolo, who reawoke inside of part 7 shall say though is that the answer to these questions will soon come once the riders reach the harshest point in the race. In the meantime, Gyro points out that the random rider really is heading their way. As Slow Dancer then throws Johnny off his back, Gyro also states that the balloons watching the race have landed and this route might be an interference allowed one. He screams out, trying his best to make this racer stay away, but to no use as the dude continues riding forth. The guy riding on the back of the horse here is called Andre Boom Boom, and he yells back screaming that he means no harm at all and just came all of this way because he saw a fire in the distance. Showing the swollen fingers on his hand, he nervously explains that he was bitten by a lizard when he was trying to take a dump, and now it's resulted in his swollen fingers. Seeing him getting off his horse now, Johnny asks what the hell he's up to and questions what exactly he was bitten by. Screaming back that it was a poisonous yellow and black striped lizard, he pleads with them to let him use their campfire to burn the wound and clean it. Gyro thinks that he could be faking it, but Johnny knows that the spotted salamander has a dangerous venom, and once it circles through their dude's body, he will undoubtedly die. Johnny asks if he's just going to let the dude die, but since Gyro just can't seem to trust this dude's story, he doesn't know. However, he does offer the random a piece of burning wood to go ahead and start his own campfire or seize the wound. Thankful for having his life saved, this mentally deranged racer then took off his belt, wrapped it around his neck, flipped it over a tree, then dropped to the ground so that the connection tightened. Creeped out with what the hell he's up to. Gyro questions Andre's actions. Andre's just like, bruh, what are you on about? This is anesthesia and he needs a painkiller for what he's about to do. Plus, he invented this trick. The feeling is absolutely insane and he lets chicks try it on him all the time. Jesus, Andre, guys, don't be like Andre and never try that at home. Please don't try that at home. I would hate to see your mum walking on that. Anyway, Andre slices off his poisoned fingers to stop it spreading around his body. However, he still ends up passing out because of the connection around his neck. Seeing this, Gyro tosses some fire to help Andre quickly seize the wound, while pointing out that the strangling might have also been too much for him. Realizing that he's not moving anymore and getting pissed now, Gyro kicks Andre's blade and apologizes for being hard on him when he first arrived, but he had to be sure that he wasn't lying at all. Seeing the guy foam from the mouth, Gyro really starts to question if the man's even alive anymore. Johnny speaks up and lets his man know that he's found the racer's name on the list. He goes by Andre Boom Boom under number C450, and he's currently placed 10th in the overall rankings. Glancing down at his own boot though, Gyro just notices how it's randomly been torn open. Feeling that something just isn't right with all of this, he quickly looks around trying to figure out what it could have been before Johnny himself cuts Gyro's thoughts off. Speaking up, he notes that also in 9th and 11th place is 2 people with the surname Boom Boom, which in his eyes means that he's definitely not alone and the family will be nearby. Making pace and galloping their way towards our main duo, Johnny and Gyro's heads snap in the direction of 2 quickly approaching riders. The female begins crying, wondering if her bro, Andre, is dead. Her father though tells her to shut her trap as men don't cry, even though she totally isn't a man, and even though Gyro approached carefully, Andre is still currently giving it all that he's got. Sadly for Gyro, he actually touched Andre's knife. Yes, it was never directly with his skin, but his boot did touch the bloodstained knife. With those mountain-shaped horse hooves nearing, Johnny pulls out the blicky and questions what the hell these guys are up to. Gyro knows for a fact that, like Johnny thought earlier, this is a 3-man team and they're all aiming for the 50 million. So, if they get in any closer, he needs to use that gun on the guy on the left while Gyro takes the dude on the right. Randomly, and before these plans can get put into action though, bladed spikes shoot up, piercing Gyro's foot and taking him by surprise. Going to clutch at his leg, he explained to Johnny that he doesn't know what the hell's going on, his leg just feels like it's made of steel all of a sudden. Looking at the comatose Andre, Johnny wonders if it could have been him or the 2 guys closing in. Knowing that something's definitely wrong inside of him, Gyro can only think of the time earlier where he had to kick away Andre's knife with his foot, and how now it seemed like some kind of poison had infected him. As the Boom Boom family came closer, Johnny pulled out his pistol, but it was taken apart in a matter of moments and the detached pieces were then sent shooting into the side of Gyro's body. Changing direction, all of the gun pieces then jam themselves onto Gyro's leg. Baffled with what the hell he's just watching, Johnny screams that it wasn't an old gun, he hasn't even used it that much, but it just suddenly fell apart when he took it out. Then, on top of that, the rest of the gun is still being pulled towards Gyro, with Johnny just being barely able to hold it back. Looking at his wounds, Gyro can do nothing as each part of the pistol slowly starts to become one with his flesh. Noticing the knife now spinning in his direction, Johnny screams that now that isn't even moving towards him. Over with the Boom Boom family, the sister questions if Andre was able to get the lizard venom out in time. Her father though, just pissed that she was being loud, told her to split away from him and make her strike from the opposite angle. While she's off following those orders, Johnny deduces that everything travelling towards Gyro is made from iron. There's even iron inside of someone's blood, so maybe they can control iron objects that way, through some sort of metal manipulation. Flinging itself up off the ground, the knife is just barely blocked by Gyro's steel ball, however it still connects with his skin getting stuck there. Seeing the father now closing in, Gyro flings his steel ball in the dude's direction. Unfazed with a rotating orb of metal, Benjamin Boom Boom pulls up his hand and captures the ball's trajectory within his own finger's reticle. Activating his ability, Benjamin stops the ball as it slams into a figurative wall and begins getting ground down in size. Watching him reach out to grab the marble-sized steel ball now, Johnny can only mutter in horror that the ball was ground down in mid-air. Sticking with her like complete and utter randomness, the Boom Boom family's plan is then out of the blue exposed by LA, who revealed that her father planned to win first place in the race, her brother would come in second, and she would take the third place. Meanwhile, Johnny and Gyro were still trying to figure out how the steel balls got ground up in mid-air. They realised that the Boom Boom family's power only works on iron, so in that case, these steel balls have to be made from iron. Eventually, the two alive Boom Boom family members surrounded Johnny and Gyro in hopes of getting their revenge for Andre. Gyro knows that unlike Mrs. Robinson from beforehand, these guys are nuts, and there has to be something superior that's behind all of this. Confused on what he means by superior, Gyro can only explain to Johnny that, well, he really doesn't know because he doesn't actually have a clue himself. Looking over at the mental case who somehow woke back up, Gyro notices this wacky looking lizard thing attached to him. Wondering if Johnny also saw the thing on Andre, he instantly loses sight of it himself, and then, on top of that, the bleeding on his leg begins worsening as the parts start burrowing even deeper. Gyro knows that it's because they're now surrounded by all three of them, and the closer he approaches them, the stronger the effect of iron in his leg becomes. Pondering, he knows that if these guys end up right next to him, then there's a huge chance that the metal goes straight through him. After literally lollygagging with each other for a few minutes over the other side of the battlefield as they slowly restrict the size of the circle, Benjamin questions who will be the one to actually fully close in and land the finishing blows. Andre thinks that they might have some more guns, but Benjamin says he doesn't think that, plus it wouldn't even matter if they did because of their ability. Choosing to go himself, Andre speaks up stating that he's prepared to get revenge for what happened earlier. Pulling out his other steel ball and activating the spin, Andre speaks up and points out that it's the other steel ball. Unconcerned with whatever Gyro is actually planning, LA just thinks it'll be the same as last time. Splitting away from the group, Andre screams that it's time. His family will take first place in this race. Throwing the ball in retaliation though, Andre screams at Gyro that there's no way it's going to reach him. However, it wasn't actually aimed at him, and instead, he watched it as it flew straight up into the sky. Watching it fall back down now towards him, Andre activates his ability and screams that there's no way it'll reach him. Before it hits, Gyro will be laid out on the floor dead. As the ball slams back down right next to Andre though, completely missing him, a random rock is flicked up at a perfect angle in the process. Knowing that they only have power over iron, Gyro presumed that a rock could be shot, and seeing that it was about to hit, he immediately told Johnny to pack his bags and get on the horse, as there's still two of them to go, and frankly, these people are freaking weird. Back over with Andre, it's shown that as said by Gyro, a rock was shot up off the ground at a perfect angle that ripped a hole through Andre and left his family stunned. On their steeds and freaking boosting it away from the Boom Boom family now, Gyro points out that after they gain some distance from them, the damage is slowly dispersing. Johnny wonders if it was a trick of some sort, or did they actually use something like a poison to make this effect. Believing that it's something more though, Gyro points out how they first made contact with him, then surrounded them before slowly closing in. To him, it looks like when you get stuck in the middle of all three of the people, it creates a powerful attack which attracts all iron in the vicinity to the center, almost like a massive magnet. Having gained some distance now, Gyro feels like it's probably best to keep heading towards the watering hole 50 kilometers ahead to get away from all current danger. Back with the Boom Boom family, Andre reacts in horror over the gaping hole, while simultaneously his sister screams that the hole is even bigger than his freaking belly button. Screaming and filled with rage over his son's impending death, Benjamin pulls out his revolver and fires a bunch of shots towards the fleeing riders. Enraging him further, LA says that they're too far away now, and that their bullets are all lead. If they were iron, then they might have actually had a chance there. Not done, Ben then points his revolver at his son and tells him to move slightly to the right. Firing the blick with literally no concern at all for who was on the receiving end, Benjamin then uses the blood-covered bullets to rain Andre's infused iron blood all over Johnny as he tries to escape. Happy with what he achieved there, Ben asks to see Andre's wounds, only to instantly tell him to harden up as it's a tiny hole. Back when he was young, he fell off a cliff and tore his whole freaking jaw off and had to walk 5 kilometers home. That hole in comparison is just nothing. Still needing to taste revenge, Ben explains that their plan is to make it to the watering hole faster than anyone else, and if they get there first, they'll destroy it so if any other racers come by, then they'll also be wiped out because they won't have any other water. Since they obviously just got lost by Johnny and Gyro though, Ellie wonders how in the world they're meant to catch up to them, but Ben, ever the big brain, reveals that it won't be them doing the chasing. Instead, he plans to have the guy tracking them find the duo. Ellie asks who it is, and Ben reveals that since this morning, someone figured out their tracks and has been following them ever since. Blown away with the skill it would take to track someone through horse hooves, Andre asks who it could possibly be. Ben states that he can't exactly see from here, but it's most likely a sheriff, possibly even Mountain Tim, who he heard is good friends with the sheriff. In preparation for Mountain Tim, Ben uses his control over Iron to manipulate the plates within his face. While watching their father go through an excruciating transformation, Andre speaks up as he thinks he's figured out what Big Pops is planning to do. Ben, on the other hand, reveals their past journey, stating that they were looking for mines on the cursed mountain inside of the desert. All of the Indians despised that mountain, but they gained power, and ever since then, they've only been happy. So, if anyone tries to stop that, they will absolutely eliminate them. Seeing a glowing light slowly approaching from the other side of the hill, the Boom Boom family members get ready to lay their trap. Riding closer and having followed the family's tracks all day, Mountain Tim blows out the light on his lantern and speaks up to whoever's nearby, stating that he was about to continue tracking them the next morning and camp here. But, under the law of the United States and Arizona Territory, he's been commissioned as an assistant sheriff, and now he's placing this random under arrest for 3 murders during the race. He urges him to slowly walk out with his hands up, as depending on the situation, he technically has the rights to execute him. Seeing the man shuffle out backwards with his hands up, Tim tells the man to keep moving back with those hands raised, but after he sees the foe turn and realizing that it was Johnny Joestar who came in 5th place, he's taken by surprise when Johnny biffs a bloody horseshoe right at him. Having an otherworldly prowess over the rope though, Tim just flexes and catches the shoe. Noticing that a bunch of blood sprayed off his shoe when he caught it, he curiously tracks down the fleeing Johnny over to the edge of the thorny undergrowth patch. Telling the fleeing dude that the chase ends here, Tim knows that if he wanted to go around the briar patch, then the dude would actually most likely escape before he could head him off. Not wanting him to get away, Tim pulls off his glove and sends his lasso forth into the maze of thorny bushes. Lassoing this random Johnny dude around his neck, Tim asks if he should yank him out or will the dude comply. Pulling a knife from his pocket and attempting to slice the rope, Johnny is just baffled when he looks down to see a bunch of hands now coming out of the rope, grabbing his hands and stopping him from cutting himself free. Looking up and seeing fingers flying down this wacky ass rope now, the grip is tightened more and more by Tim before he completely subdues the man. Back over with Tim, it's shown that somehow the rope has become one with himself and it's looped through all of his freaking fingers. Just to add to the weirdness of the situation, Tim then merges his second hand into the rope and sucker punches the side of this random fake ass Johnny's face. Screaming out in horror over the fact that Tim's fingers broke into pieces before travelling along the rope freely, Ben wonders if there's a possibility Mountain Tim also went to that specific mountain and became a cursed man. Not worried even if this is the case, Ben points out that Mountain Tim had touched the horseshoe thrown earlier, and because of that, he's now indirectly touching him. All Ben has to do now to enact their plan is escape the rope's grasp. Unable to use the knife in his hand though due to Tim holding it back, Ben manipulates the skin on his face to have a blade merge through and slice the rope around his neck. Surprised with how light his rope just became, Tim quickly reels it in while realizing that the dude most likely had 2 knives on him. Seeing the enemy's horse make a run for it now, Tim joins his hands back together and states that from memory, that dude's name was Johnny Joestar, and honestly, he's surprised that he was the murderer. Back over with the Boom Boom family as Ben reunites with them, he explains that he's also changed his hoof prints to match that of Johnny's. So, all that's left for them now is to let Mountain Tim get ahead and track down Johnny and Gyro himself. Once he does that, the plan is for all 3 of these goons to chill out and watch while all 3 of the others get sucked together before exploding due to the magnetic force. So that there officially brings us to what is the very end of the Desert Born Outlaws arc. If you guys have enjoyed the video so far and want to see more stuff just like this, but for a multitude of different series from Demon Slayer to Tokyo Revengers, then make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video as it really helps out with pushing my content to a bunch of new amazing people. But either way, for now it's been your professional degenerate Diavolo, and I will see you all in a bit. Bye.